Let me try again. Hello, everybody. Yeah, my name is Zohab Zee Khan, and it's an absolute pleasure to be talking to you all. I'm a poet, a life coach, an educator, a storyteller, and an international workshop facilitator. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here as part of Aspire. That's all the dignitaries and the nice stuff out of the way. I want to get straight into it. And I just thought I would share a little bit of the insights of how I conduct my workshops, which I've been fortunate enough to do all around the world. I think I did a quick count before I jumped onto this. I think I've had the pleasure of talking to tens of thousands of kids all over this beautiful earth of ours. Maybe you can tell from my accent, it's a little bit from the other side of the world, but I do call London home now. And yeah, I always like to start with a quick story. And I imagine a majority of the people in this Zoom meeting are educators and are teachers and work with young people. And I thought back to many, many, many years ago, well, not that long ago, back when I was a little bit younger and a little bit shorter. And I would have been about 12 years old. In year 6, I had this incredible teacher by the name of Mrs. Blackwell. And Mrs. Blackwell, let me just put myself pinned. I should probably do that. Give me 1 second. There we go. Mrs. Blackwell was my teacher in year 6, and she did something for me that has stuck with me for my entire life. And that's what today's is about. It's about poetry, wellness, and creating lifelong change in young people. And what Mrs. Blackwell did to me once was we were cleaning out this garage, cleaning out this old shed area as part of my school. And I grew up in a very small country town by the name of Yenda in the middle of Australia. And Yenda, when I grew up there, only had about 900 people in their town. It was like middle of outback, nowhere. And Yenda, when I grew up there, only had about 85 students in their primary school. And I just happened to be the only one that had this pigment to their skin. And I had my own prejudice and racism as a result of that. And Mrs. Blackwell picked up on this. And as we were cleaning up the little shed that needed to be taken, all the things out, there was all this mathematical stuff in there. And there was a big wooden protractor. And Mrs. Blackwell pulled up this wooden protractor, and she noticed that I was getting a lot of bullying and a lot of bad things were happening to me at school. And she said, see this protractor? If you change something half a degree, all the way down there on the other side of the oval, that's going to be meters and meters and meters and meters. And to 12-year-old me, that was absolutely profound to think that half a degree of change could make a world of difference. And to us as adults, it might seem like a very simple idea, but to a child, there's something extremely profound about that. And that's something that's stuck with me for the rest of my life. And it's something that dictates how I conduct myself and how I teach young people. It's me wanting to be the person that wish had come and talked to me when I was a young man, going through all the trials and the tribulations and all of the things and creativity. And by Mrs. Blackwell telling me this story of, imagine we walked all the way to the other side of this football field, we would be meters and meters and meters apart just from half a degree. So today is all about creating that. But before we do that, I want to share a poem, because after all, I am a poet, and I think it's only right that the poet does some poetry. And this is a poem based on a true story from a city that I went to when I was a little bit older than the young boy that you just heard of, when I was at university. And I went to university in a small country town, in a slightly larger country town called Wagga Wagga. It's a real place. And a lot of people in the UK, whenever I tell them I come from a town called Wagga Wagga, they go, that doesn't quite sound right. But I assure you it's a real place. And it's where I went to university. And when I was walking down the street in beautiful Wagga Wagga one day, I came across this not so nice person. He had a few prejudices under his belt. And he said something not so nice to me. And it stuck with me. And I rushed home absolutely livid after our interaction. And I wrote this poem. It takes about 2 minutes. He said, Go back to where you came from, you dirty terrorist. He called me a dirty terrorist. But to be honest, this isn't the first time I've heard this. So I've become used to such abuse and I've learned to pick and choose what I listen to. But this was new. This time, this middle-aged man held in his hand the hand of his 10-year-old son. And I'm not one to tell someone how to raise their seed, but this made my soul bleed. Black, boiling blood. For when I have a son, I'm going to teach him love. I'm going to teach him respect and acceptance for all creatures in existence. But this man, he didn't seem to understand that his wicked words manifest in the chest of his son, leaving him with a hate-filled heart he'll go to school with, thinking it's cool to act just like dad and call that Kit Kat brown kid a dirty Arab. And trust me, you should stay back when my mind frame's in a mind frame where I'm a name and shame, a racist terrorist. And for the next 4 minutes, I waged war with my words. My lyrical jihad was heard down every street in Wagga Wagga. My poem of mass destruction caused destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki proportions. People, please proceed with caution, for I rock no suicide vest, but I assure you, a bomb lies inside this chest, ready for love. Explosions of the most poetic kind. I am a terrorist of the mind, spreading extremist ideals of peace, love, harmony, one poem at a time. So when I rhyme not to be heard, but to be heard. Word. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I share that poem very deliberately, very, very, very deliberately. I share that poem very, very deliberately because it's all part of my master plan, which I shall unveil very, very shortly. But hopefully you did enjoy it. Thank you very much in the chat. I've got flames in the chat from Imrana. I just saw your presentation earlier on the day, which was absolutely amazing as well. So thank you very much for the flames. And I've got some claps up there from Luke as well. And I want to flip the script a little bit. Some of you may be at work, some of you may be at home, wherever you happen to be. I would love for everybody to come off mute right now, if that's okay, and literally tell me one interesting fact about themselves. It doesn't even matter if we're talking over each other. So get it ready, get it ready. I'm going to give you 7 seconds to think about it so that someone's not a little bit awkward and doesn't want to actually get it out their mouth. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let it out in the cosmos. I'm going to make some noise so that it can drown you people out. Oh, it's coming. It's coming. Go on.
This is scary, speaking.
That's a fact. It's a little bit scary. Go on. What else have we got?
Oh, sun shining.
Beautiful. Can I hear some from more people?
Yeah.
Well, it's not a really interesting fact about me, but I'm driving, enjoying the conference.
Thank you very much for chiming in. I really appreciate it.
I'm sewing while I'm listening.
Lovely. That's an incredible fact. You're sewing. You're multi-talented.
I just started writing again after 10 years of not writing.
And we've got people talking over each other. Even better. Someone started writing before for the last 10 years, which is incredible. I didn't hear what was in the background, and it's okay. We can stop there. Not that that other person wasn't important. It's the fact that getting people engaged and getting people to get out of their seats and talk and is such a huge aspect of the manner in which I teach and the manner in which I engage with my young people. One of my absolute favorite things to do to make poetry stick into people's brains is to ask about poetic techniques. So I'll ask, go on, who was talking before? Who was sewing?
I'm sewing, Eleanor.
Hi, Eleanor. Okay, Eleanor, we're going to take you back all the way to primary school. And let's see if you remember your basic poetic technique. I'm talking about rhyme and rhythm. And can you fill in the gap? What's the next one?
Oh, rhyme with rhythm, scansion.
Woo, I don't even know what that one is. Scansion.
Well, when the way the whole sentence has sort of beats, and it is to do with rhythm, isn't it? See, I'm not going back as far as primary school. I don't remember doing anything about poetic techniques at primary school. It's much more about later study, hence big words.
All good, Scansion. Clearly the British educational system was substantially better than the Australia one that I got. But I'll always get that interaction between my students and ask for poetic techniques. And I've developed a little bit of a trick. I don't have one for Scansion yet, but I'll get one. And I've developed little tricks on how to make sure that they stick. So for example, my favorite one would be a metaphor. If we're going to go with a metaphor, is always somebody's favorite technique. It'll always come up, and I'll ask, Eleanor, can you come back off mute and give me any subject in the entire world?
As soon as you said metaphor, I thought, oh yeah, metaphor, simile, all of the rest.
Yeah. Can you any object?
You want any object?
Yes, please.
A coffee cup.
Beautiful. I wonder how you thought of that. Luke, Luke, can you get yourself off mute, please, and give me any other object in the entire world?
A lampshade.
A lampshade. Amazing. We're thinking outside of the house today, I can tell. So we've got lampshade from Luke, and we've got coffee cup from Eleanor. So we've got coffee cup, lampshade, lampshade, coffee cup, lampshade. All right. So clearly you've already seen that I'm a very good poet. And clearly I can write a really good metaphor. To give you an example what a metaphor is. So a metaphor is when you say something is something else. That's what I would tell the kids. And you're all adults and you're all teachers and you know what that is. So when you say something is something, so I've got coffee cup and I've got lampshade. Coffee cup, lampshade, lampshade, coffee cup, lampshade, coffee cup. We've got a coffee cup and we've got lampshade. The coffee cup is a lampshade. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That is a metaphor. Obviously, that's a terrible metaphor. Obviously, I could have probably thought of a better metaphor than that. But the fact that saying a lampshade is a coffee cup or a coffee cup is a lampshade, that's the basic definition of a metaphor. And whenever I teach poetic techniques or poetic devices or even wellness to young people, I try to get it super, super simple and create a deliberate link to something that they can forever remember. Just like I forever remember that protractor from Mrs. Blackwell that I mentioned at the start, these kids will forever, well, hopefully you will forever remember the coffee cup and the lampshade. The coffee cup and the lampshade is a coffee cup, and you'll forever know what a metaphor is. So what have I been doing for the last 13 minutes? For the last 13 minutes, I've been following a little system that has stuck with me for my entire life because of Mrs. Blackwell. And that is something I like to give a nice little acronym. Oh, let's see if you can see it. Hopefully you can see that. I call it SEED. And from little seeds, big seeds grow. And this is a wonderful little kid that I met in one of my many, many, many school visits. I think this is in Outback Australia somewhere. And what I call SEED is storytelling, emotions, engagement, and deliberate links. Every workshop that you will ever come to that I'll do, I will make sure that I follow that SEED platform, that guideline. That little picture is from Japan. I've done a lot of schools in Japan, and it's one of my favorite selfies. So storytelling, by engaging storytelling, we're more likely to remember what a lesson is. So that's why I engaged with my Mrs. Blackwell story at the start, to really, really get you to imagining and memorizing and coming in to the journey with me. Then we've got emotions. I always like to utilize poetry or artistic aspects of myself. I also use my didgeridoo or music to engage people's emotional structures. I also use a lot of meditation and writing techniques to get people really, really into that emotional state. By pulling on your heartstrings and by making students think in different ways and different emotional wavelengths, they're more susceptible to creating emotional ties that can change and make that brain more malleable, particularly in their frontal lobes, which will really, really be easy to get into. I like to play with their brains a little bit. Then there is engagement. It's why I asked you to come off mute. It's why I asked you those questions. And if I was to be running a poetry workshop or a wellness workshop, I think it's incredibly important to make sure that every single person in the room gets an opportunity to speak, whether it's big or small, or there'll always be one kid that wants to share an entire poem, but sometimes there'll be this very, very shy person. We've all got them in our classes that doesn't want to say anything. And for them, you can get a grunt. For them, you can get one line or one word or one look. And if you mirror that look, I count that as engagement. And that's something that I really, really pride myself on, to make sure that we can mirror each other and get that engagement. I love this SEED acronym. And that last one is deliberate links. And using anchors to create links between two things, much like I did between the metaphor and a coffee cup and a lampshade. Hopefully that will stay with you. There's also other little tricks that I do with onomatopoeia. I love teaching onomatopoeia. It's probably my favorite technique to share. But creating deliberate links between young people's brains and the learning moment in that time. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do. I also teach, oh, look, I've got a little drawing. Isn't that exciting? I use a lot of coaching aspects. I am a life coach by trade as well. And that's a whole model. I follow a GROW model. You're more than welcome to send me an email and send me a message about that. And I'm more than happy to share my resources in regards to how to get life coaching into schools and into young people and poetry. But I knew I only had 20 minutes. I can talk for hours and hours and hours. I always like to leave the last couple of minutes for questions. I know it was short, sharp, and sweet. Are there any questions for me in regards to what you've just experienced? If you don't, that's perfectly fine too. You're more than welcome to throw that in the chat or yell out at me. And I'm going to have a look at this thing. Great session. Thank you. No, thank you. Thank you very much. There is one more thing that I would like to share if we have the time. If we don't have any questions, I'm perfectly okay with that as well. What I can do, I'm going to pull up my screen again. I do like to follow the deliberate links, the SEED platform, but I also use something called a GROW model. And, oh, has someone come off mute? Oh, that's okay. I also use something called the GROW model. And the GROW model stands for goal, reality, options, and will. I'm going to give you like 3 minutes, a few minutes just to even absorb those questions. What I like to do with my students is I'll ask them GROW questions. So at the start of our session, you can even do this right now if you wanted to, and you'll ask a student, okay, what do you want to achieve? And you get them to write that down. And then from that achievement, you'll ask them reality questions. You're more than welcome to take a screenshot of this and get them to answer the reality questions. And you can prompt your students through these questions to get those reality aspects out of them. And reality is an aspect of coaching and aspect of day-to-day life that we don't actually explore enough. When we explore our reality, only then do our answers come. So often, a lot of people will say, oh, a student will come up to you and say, oh, what's her name said this to me, and then I said this to them, and you know what? I want to go home and I'm crying. But when you explore the reality of, okay, can you tell me what's happening right now in this moment? And can you describe exactly what you did or where you are in relation to what you actually want to achieve, which is harmony or feel a little bit better? It really, really is an incredible thing. So if you were to do this exercise with your students, I would encourage you to spend as much time as you can in that reality aspect. And only then, feel free to take a screenshot, only then would it be time to go into the options and realize, okay, what options do we have available for these amazing students? And then the final one of the GROW model is will. What will you do? And what are you going to do about it? And by asking those key questions of your students, it's always better when it's done in a live coaching session, in a live coaching environment, but when you can do it on a piece of paper, oh, it's an incredibly powerful thing as well. That is the quickest 20 minutes of my entire life. If you would like to contact me or want a little bit more information about the work that I do in schools, please do contact me on all of the socials. That's my name. That's generally how you will find me. I really want to have a look at this. Look at this thing. Oh, wow, that is really, really cool. Does anybody have any other questions? Oh, we do. From Teakstar, what do you know now that you wish someone had told you earlier? That is a really good question. Thank you very much, Teakstar. And I just saw your session as well. It was really, really insightful. Thank you for sharing that one. I suppose the main thing that I wish I knew now, I always encourage my students to be okay about being not so great, and be okay with being insecure, and being okay with being a little bit shaky, and realizing how that affects their decision-making skills and how that affects the other aspects of their life. So just knowing that it's okay to be insecure and being okay to be not so great makes a huge, huge difference. I suppose I'm just going to leave it there because I know that there's other things. Oh, I love this little drawing. I'm even going to take myself off the spotlight just so I can see that. That is so cool. Thank you so much for everyone that did pop in. If there are any other, was there? Thank you so much, insightful. Thank you, Imran. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. I felt like that was way too short, but hopefully we can do this all again. And I think that's me done and dusted. Adios.